The crisp air of the mountains was refreshing as Evelyn and Harry cruised along the winding road, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the valley. They had been looking forward to this getaway for months, escaping the buzz of the city, immersing themselves in the tranquility of nature, and rediscovering the simplicity of being together. Their destination was a charming little hotel tucked away in the hills, recommended by an old travel blog Evelyn had stumbled across on the internet. It was called Sunset Hotel. They arrived just as the sky was blushing with the hues of sunset. The hotel loomed before them, an old stone structure that seemed oddly out of place amidst the lush greenery of the forest. Its architecture was more reminiscent of a bygone era, a grand manor that had somehow ended up at the edge of the world. Ivy climbed its walls, and the windows were dark, almost reflective in their stillness. Harry parked the car in the small gravel lot, and they both stepped out, gazing at the building with a mix of curiosity and unease. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Harry asked, glancing at Evelyn with a raised eyebrow. Evelyn checked her phone. "Yeah, this is it. It looks quaint." Her voice had an edge of uncertainty that matched his own. They walked up the creaking steps to the front door. The wood was weathered, the brass doorknob tarnished and cold. Evelyn reached out to open it, and the heavy door swung inward with a low groan before she could touch it. The air inside was thick and musty. A grand chandelier hung from the ceiling, though the light it gave off was dim and uneven. The lobby was furnished with antique chairs and faded rugs, giving the whole space a timeless, forgotten feeling. A massive wooden desk stood at the far end. Behind it sat a man with sharp features, his skin pale, almost ashen. His dark hair was slicked back, and his deep-set eyes followed them as they approached. "Welcome," he said, his voice soft but carrying a strange echo. "You must be Mr. and Mrs. Sheffer." Evelyn opened her mouth to correct him. They weren't married, but something about the way he said it stopped her. She simply nodded. "Your room is ready," he continued, not looking away. "Room 13 on the second floor." "Thank you," Harry said quickly, feeling the need to fill the silence that seemed to stretch uncomfortably. The man handed them a brass key, the number 13 etched into it, and then pointed towards the staircase. As they climbed up the stairs, the sensation of being watched crawled over Evelyn's skin. She glanced behind her, expecting to see the man at the desk still staring at them, but the lobby was empty. A strange heavy silence filled the hotel, broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the wooden stairs. Room 13 was at the end of a narrow hallway. The walls were covered in faded floral wallpaper, peeling at the edges. Harry unlocked the door, and they stepped into their room. It was large, with high ceilings, and a canopy bed draped in heavy dark curtains. The furniture, like everything else in the hotel, looked old, worn, yet somehow untouched by time. Evelyn wandered to the window and pulled back the thick velvet curtains. The view was stunning, the vast mountain range bathed in the soft glow of twilight. But something about the stillness of the forest below unsettled her. There was no movement, no sound, not even the wind rustling the trees. No bird was chirping. It was just a weird silence that made her blood run cold in her veins. "I guess it's kind of charming," Harry said, setting their bags down and flopping onto the bed. The mattress creaked ominously under his weight. Evelyn turned away from the window, forcing a smile. "Yeah, it's got character," she said. But deep down she felt something was off. She couldn't shake the strange vibe of the place, as if the hotel itself was watching them, waiting for something. It was just a bad, bad feeling. As night fell, the atmosphere inside the hotel grew more oppressive. After a long day of travel, they decided to call it an early night, but sleep was elusive. Evelyn lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint creaks and groans of the old building. Harry snored lightly beside her, his arm draped over her waist, but even his warmth didn't comfort her. At some point during the night, a distant howl pierced the silence. Evelyn's heart leaped into her throat. She sat up, listening. The howl came again, long, mournful, and closer this time. "Harry, did you hear that?" she whispered, shaking him awake. "Hear what?" he mumbled groggily. The howl rose once more, this time accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the hallway outside their door. Slow, deliberate footsteps. They moved with an unnatural rhythm, like someone or something was dragging itself along. Harry sat up, his eyes wide now, fully awake. He listened, his face growing pale as the footsteps neared their door, then stopped just outside. The doorknob rattled. Evelyn's breath hitched. She clutched Harry's arm, and they both stared at the door, waiting, frozen with fear. But nothing happened. The doorknob stopped moving, and the footsteps continued down the hall, fading into silence once more. "What the hell is going on?" Harry whispered, his voice shaking. "I don't know, but I don't like it," Evelyn replied, her heart pounding. "We should leave. First thing in the morning." Harry agreed. "We're getting out of here." The rest of the night passed in a tense, sleepless haze. Every creak, every distant sound put them on edge, but nothing else disturbed their door. By the time dawn broke, a pale light filtering through the heavy curtains, they were both exhausted. They packed their bags in silence, eager to leave the eerie hotel behind. When they stepped into the hallway, it was deathly quiet, more so than it had been the night before. The light fixtures flickered weakly overhead. As they made their way downstairs, the sense of wrongness deepened. The wallpaper on the walls had peeled back further, revealing mold and cracks in the wood beneath. The air smelled damp and rotten. When they reached the lobby, Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The grand chandelier that once hung from the ceiling now lay shattered on the floor, shards of glass scattered across the faded carpet. The front desk was abandoned, the once polished wood now dull and cracked. "Harry, what happened?" Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. "It's like this place aged overnight." Harry didn't respond. He was staring out the front door, his face pale. Evelyn followed his gaze and gasped. The forest outside was no longer lush and green. It was dark and twisted, the trees gnarled and bare, as if winter had come overnight. The sky was an overcast gray, and a strange mist hung over the ground, swirling ominously around the base of the hotel. "I don't understand," Harry said, his voice barely audible. Evelyn grabbed his hand. "We need to get out of here." They rushed to the front door, but as they pushed it open, the air outside was cold and biting, a stark contrast to the warmth of the previous day. They hurried to their car, but the gravel lot was empty, no sign of their vehicle. Panic rose in Evelyn's chest. "Where's the car, Harry? Where's the car?" "It was right here," Harry stammered, his eyes wide with fear. He turned in circles, searching for any sign of it, but the lot was deserted, as if their car had never been there. "We have to find someone," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "Maybe there's another way out of here." But as they turned back to the hotel, they realized that the building itself seemed to be deteriorating before their eyes. The stone walls were crumbling, the windows shattered. Vines and moss grew thick along the facade, as if the forest had begun reclaiming it. The front door, once so heavy and imposing, now hung crookedly on its hinges. "We need to get inside," Harry muttered, pulling Evelyn towards the door. But when they re-entered the lobby, it was as though they had stepped into a ruin. The floorboards were rotting, and the furniture was broken and decayed. There was no sign of life, no trace of the strange man who had greeted them the day before. "This can't be real," Evelyn whispered. Harry looked around, his face pale. "We need to find another way out. Come on." They hurried through the crumbling hotel, searching for an exit, but every door they tried led them back into the decaying halls. The windows were sealed, impossible to open. The oppressive sense of being trapped weighed heavier with each passing minute. Just as Evelyn was about to give in to despair, they heard the faint sound of footsteps again, this time behind them. They spun around, but the hallway was empty. The footsteps grew louder, closer, echoing through the ruined hotel, and then from the shadows a voice whispered, low and chilling, "You were never meant to leave." With adrenaline pumping, they somehow managed to open a door and ran into the woods, eventually finding the main road where they could be picked up by a passing car. When they called the police and returned the next day to the same spot, there was not even a ruin of the Sunset Hotel. Suddenly, Harry stumbled on something. Looking down, he found an old doorknob, identical to the one from the horror room they had stayed in just 2 days before.